Love, love, love till I hear the breath of the Spirit flowing in me.
Hello, welcome to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Montel Thomas. Hello, Montel.
Hi, Geraldine.
Yeah, it's interesting to meet you. I saw you play the other week, and it was amazing. You're a great drummer.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and as this show is about one's spirituality, I'd love to hear about, what led you to be a strong believer, and what it was like before you were a strong believer.
Definitely. So I grew up in a Catholic family, so always went to church, but it was very forced kind of thing. Like, the parents would tell you to go to church, you wouldn't want to get up on Sunday, but you would go because they're telling you. So I wasn't completely interested in it. But then as I got older, I kind of started to understand what I was hearing about in church and how we're all trying to be better people through God, like by knowing God. So, yeah.
And you grew up in Canada.
Yes. So I was born there and lived there for the first 5 or so years of my life before we moved to Australia.
And what made your family move to Canada?
That's where my dad's family is. So dad's family was in Canada, but mum's was in Australia. So we ended up moving down here so mum could be a little bit closer with her family.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, and how many siblings do you have?
One younger brother.
And then what took you on the journey of musician?
That was through my family. So on mum's side of the family, her uncles were in a band together, and my her side will always get together and have like sing-alongs whenever there's a family gathering, and dad's family would do the same. All of his uncles were singers as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so music comes from both sides.
So you're like jamming with them, and did you join in? And what did you play when you were a child?
When I was a child, usually drums at first. I would try and play some drums, but you can't always take drums with you everywhere, so that was only if they had a drum kit. So then eventually when I picked up the guitar, I moved on to that. So I play guitar at all the family gatherings now. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Lead or bass?
Oh, definitely bass.
You're a bass person.
Yeah.
And what about different types of drums?
Oh, mainly just the standard
The whole
acoustic
big
drum
kit.
kit. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. And your teacher, who was he?
I had a few different teachers because I learned through my primary school. So every couple or so years, one of the teachers would leave because they would have another big job to do, or they'd move on to something bigger. So I had a constant turnover of teachers, which was great because I learned from so many people.
Oh, yeah. And the fact that they became like good musicians and moved
Exactly,
on showed you learn from the best.
Definitely, yeah.
And so that's wonderful. And you started studying music in Australia?
Yes.
Oh,
so
wow.
I've done all of my schooling and studies here so far. Yeah.
And what about the Christian faith attracts you to it?
I guess it's the aspect of community, how we're such a tight-knit community that we're all together. We build each other up, and we want to. It's that
excellent.
aspect of it.
Oh, that's great. And you also are involved with teaching music now.
Yes. So I teach now in the school where I used to learn, and also in my high school.
Oh, excellent. Well, what is it like to be a teacher?
It's interesting being on the other side because I know I used to be a little bit rowdy when I was a student as well, and teachers would have a little bit of trouble trying to bring me back in so they can teach, and now I get to experience what I put them through, so it's fun.
Oh, that's good. And do you find that your students are cooperative most of the time?
Oh, most of the time, definitely. Yeah, I've got lots of good students, so.
Excellent. So you teach them the different styles of music?
Yeah, so whatever they want to learn.
Yeah, oh, that's good. And what is your favorite style?
Me? Right now it'd have to be hip hop. Hip hop and rap. Yeah.
Hip hop and rap. Have you done any compositions?
A little bit. So I help other people write some songs. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. So you do it together kind of thing.
Yeah. I like to
Yeah.
work with others.
Yeah, and that's what you were saying, that you enjoy the community aspect.
Exactly.
So your parents encourage you with your music, obviously, with
Yeah.
having a musical family.
Definitely.
That's wonderful. And do you think that the there's much difference between Canada and Australia with regards to music?
I don't think so. I think, yeah, both are pretty. We're not the biggest in the music industry of the world. We're not really putting out a lot, but locally there's a lot of growth in that area, and that's also very community based because we'll go out, we'll support each other musicians work together.
Yeah, no, that's good, isn't it? Because then you're not all doing mega stars. You're kind of giving each other a go
Exactly,
and
yeah.
supporting each other, which I think is also a wonderful like Christian thing of community and helping each other. Not not protecting one's own recipe as such.
Exactly, yeah.
How some people don't want to share their recipes. Yeah. But I've seen you perform, and I think you're a generous performer.
Thank you.
Because obviously when you perform in a band, so sometimes there's who's going to shine,
Yeah.
But I've seen in your bands that you'll give each person a chance to shine, and which is good, because to encourage the young and all this, rather than hold on to it.
Yeah.
I remember in my experience of being in a band myself, where people are like, that microphone was always with them and not with me, and all those kind of things. But because of our faith, I suppose it challenges to share and draw each other and encourage each other.
Exactly.
And I think your generosity has borne fruit.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what we'll do now is we'll go for a break, and we'll catch up with you after the break.
Sounds great.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. We'll be back after the break.
Go till I feel the breath of the Spirit flowing in me. Blow, blow, till I feel the breath of the Spirit flowing in me.
Hello. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Montel Thomas. He's a musician. Welcome, Montel.
Thanks, Geraldine.
Welcome back. So besides being a musician, you also are a teacher. And how did you get jobs? I mean, we know in Australia it's not easy to get jobs as a performer. So tell me about how you got jobs and all that, how that happened.
Yeah, so as a student in most of the schools I went to, I really tried to put myself out there in the performance side of things. So playing drums in musicals and trying to create bands, battle of the bands in schools, and then also by learning in the schools that I went to. A lot of the people that ran both the music school that I studied at and the music curriculum in my high school got to know me very well, that when they had spaces for teachers, they thought I would be a good fit, and that brought me onto the job.
Yeah, I think would you call yourself an extrovert?
I'd say so.
Yeah, I think it helps when you're a performer to be an extrovert.
Yeah.
I know some people who are introverts who are also performers, but they tend not to want to go out there as much. And it also can be disappointing if you put yourself out there and you don't get the job. So it's a bit of a, so that's to your benefit.
But I do think that there are some of the introverts are some of the biggest performers in the world, though. Such as I think Freddie Mercury from Queen used to be an introvert, and some others out there.
And your faith sort of started developing through your involvement in the church.
Yes, definitely. So it mainly started when I became an altar server that really got me in touch with my faith. So through my church, there was a lack of altar servers, and a few of my friends and I went, and we thought we'll get trained up and learn how to be servers. And yeah, I started altar serving about 12 years ago or so.
Wow.
I think, yeah, it's about 12 years, and we're still continuing. I'm currently with the Guild of St. Stephen, which is the
Excellent.
national guild through Australia.
What happens with that when you become an altar server? Is what you get formation, or do you get community? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so most churches, when you're young, you just learn in your own parish, and you get to know the other servers in your parish, and you have little gatherings for the servers, and you train together, and you get to know each other, and you build these lasting friendships. But then when you get older, so when you get into high school, you can join the guild, which is a national guild around Australia.
I see.
So I joined the guild, and I've gotten to know so many different people around both the state and the country through the guild, and I currently work with the guild as part of the team now. So
Oh, really?
I've continued that. Yeah.
Do you have national conferences?
Yes.
Yeah.
So those were incredible.
So what do you do at the national conferences?
It's kind of like the state conferences. So every year the state has conferences that you get together and you train with people around your state. And the nationals just like that, but on a much bigger scale.
Oh, wow. So you pray and read the Bible and get talks?
Yeah.
So it's social and spiritual, sounds like it?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
So you learn how to pray the old Latin style of prayer sometimes.
Wow.
You go to Adoration, which was incredible. That was my first real experience of Adoration, I think.
Yeah. Tell us what adoration is for the viewers.
So, how do you explain Adoration? Adoration is when the Blessed Sacrament is exposed, and you just get to pray in any form that you like.
Oh, wow.
Well, in front
And you
of the Blessed
felt a
Sacrament.
peace when you were praying? Did you feel a presence of God?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's this warm feeling that just comes
Yeah.
over you.
Oh,
And
wow.
I have no idea how to explain it, but it's incredible in the moment.
Yeah, that's powerful. I also had the same experience. I was in adoration, and at that time I didn't believe in whether Jesus was present in the Eucharist, like in the bread. But I found that for my experience, the closer I got to the Eucharist, the more I felt peace. And the further I went away, I didn't feel as much peace. So I was sitting there for hours and just basking in God's love and peace. But I also found that confession was an important thing for me at the camp, because I found that as I thought of all the things that I did to hurt myself, because I was at the time had a low self-image, as I confess about hurting myself, I found I also experienced more peace. Have you had an experience of confession?
Yeah, so with confession, I guess as a child I used to think you can do whatever you want, and then as long as you confessed it would be okay. But as I got older, I got to realize that we go to confession to, of course, admit our mistakes, and God forgives us. We know that what we do wasn't right, and that He'll help us through that. But it's to get better, and that we admit our mistakes because we want to improve ourselves and get as close to God as possible.
It's good. And I had an experience through talking to the priest, and he said when you ask God for grace in confession, you get the strength to live a better life.
Definitely, yeah.
So with that experience of God and adoration, you were also beginning to search a bit to go deeper, didn't you?
Yeah, so through that experience, I guess, it's what really got me in touch with the faith. And after that first experience, I was kind of like, okay, this felt incredible. How do you get more? So that pushed me to join different events and go meet new people and kind of just expand what I thought the faith was.
Yes, and I think you found, especially you went to that conference, Rise conference.
Yes, so the Rise Youth Festival last year, which was an incredible experience. It changed everything for me.
Wow.
Since then.
Yeah, and you got to hear a talk that really touched you.
Yeah, so after Mass and just before Adoration, Gary Pinto gave his testimony, and through his testimony he was talking about how he was bedridden and had this darkness over him. So he said these words. It was along the lines of, God, I give myself to you. And after he did that, God took the darkness away and he was out of bed and he could go back to being his self. And I heard that and I thought, if I say the same words, maybe God can bring me something if I truly mean it. So
Wow.
yeah.
We're gonna go for a break now, but I'd love to hear more. You've been watching Spirit of Life. Join us after the break.
Blow till I hear the breath of the Spirit blowing in me. Blow, blow, blow till I hear the breath of the Spirit blowing in me.
Hello, welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Montel Thomas. He is a musician. Welcome back, Montel. You shared about how Gary Pinto talked about his experience of being in darkness and not being able to get out of bed. But when he called on God, he had the strength to get out of bed. Would you like to continue?
Yeah, so that talk, through that I realized kind of like God can really do anything and he can take our suffering away. He can give us the strength and grace that we both need and that we want. So through that talk and during adoration, I kind of just prayed that God could give me almost a sign of what he wants me to do, because I knew that I wanted music, but I didn't know in what sense. And in case that wasn't the right path and I was just chasing the wrong path, I just wanted, a sense of what he really wanted me to do. So that was also my first experience with prayer teams. So after I prayed about that during adoration, I went to a prayer team, and one of my good friends now and a musician that I collaborate with, Joe Mellum, he prayed over me. And ever since Rise, I've been working with various musicians in the Christian industry, and it's been an incredible journey through music.
Yes, and would you say that you felt a little bit in the dark a bit and that was like a real light bulb experience?
I'd say so. It was interesting in the sense that lots of people I know have visions and these big waves just rush over them, and they feel that in the moment. They know that something's changed and they experience that immediately. But I guess I didn't feel that at the time. It was just like a really light kind of feeling over me that was just like, okay, something's going to happen. But I didn't know what, and nothing felt like it had changed. But then in the course of a year, I've worked with Josh Angrasano and joined the One Worship Band, and yeah, everything's taken off through God.
So you were saying that you were also wondering, because sometimes the music world can be a little bit dark. There's light and dark, isn't it? But there's always that question: should I give up my musician because being like a singer-songwriter, musician, because it takes me away from God? So it sounds like those sort of questions were in your mind a bit.
Yeah, because I wasn't even thinking about the Christian music industry when I was considering going into music. I was only thinking about the secular industry. And I guess in the secular industry, there is that detachment from God where they're trying to take God out. You don't really hear many songs about God on the radio or any Christian artists being as big as the current pop artists. But after that experience, the Christian industry really came to me almost, it came to me, I came into it. So
Yeah, that's wonderful. I suppose people like Gary Pinto and Elisa and Georgia and Genevieve, they do some secular and some spiritual gigs, don't they?
yeah, so it's a mix, because obviously the secular industry is difficult, but you don't want to lose touch with your religion and with Christ. So you do a mix of it because both progress and push you farther than you were originally.
Yeah, so it's exciting for you to realize that you didn't have to put away your your piano or your guitar for God.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I know a friend, Father David Lamavu in MGL. He, just for his first few years training to be a priest, he felt like he wanted to give up his great love first, and he actually didn't play music for a couple of years when he was training, because he wanted to just focus on being training to be a priest. And he said that giving it up was also freeing, but then God called him to take it back up, the singing and the piano playing, and he uses it during his sermons, and he sings, and he uses drama, because he used to be in our musical theater group, also to bring people closer to God.
Gotcha. I mean, music was a gift given to us from God, so why not use it in as many ways and as long as we can?
Yes. I always remember that story of King David, where he danced in front of the tabernacle praising God and really expressed himself fully.
Yeah.
And playing music, godly music, have you had, what do you feel when you're playing God music?
Well, at the last night of worship, which was done by One Worship and DOJ, I went into that. We only had one rehearsal before, and I went into the rehearsal and I was focused so much on what I was going to play that when the actual night started, I forgot everything. And it was an incredible experience, because though I had forgotten everything, it was kind of just like I knew what I was doing, but I wasn't in control. It was a weird experience, but it was just incredible to be playing, but having almost like the Spirit through me.
Wow, so you're like feeling led by the Spirit as you were drumming.
Definitely. It was incredible.
Oh, yes. That's it. It was almost, for acting, it's almost like improvisation and just seeing it flow.
Exactly.
Yes, I once had to perform with just seeing the script just 2 minutes before, and I just said, Holy Spirit, take over. And I was quite surprised how just true, when you study for a long time, you can, and the Holy Spirit most of all, I said, okay, I'll fill in the role, and I just acted. It did help very much, because it was a Christian play, so I kind of got the gist, but I was just saying, thank you, God, you made things work out. By the way, when is the RISE conference next on?
It's on March 21st at Emmaus College.
Oh, fantastic. Goodbye, and God bless you with your work.
Thank you.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay tuned next week. Goodbye, God bless you.
Bring it to birth and blow where you will. Blow, blow, blow till I be but breath of the Spirit.